Welcome back to Built to Ship, the podcast where we go behind the scenes with founders and product leaders shipping real AI products into the world. I'm your host, Tyler Postal from Voker, and today I'm joined by Neha and Ryan, co-founders of Nyelux, an AI-powered medical device intelligence platform that lets clinicians instantly search and get accurate information on millions of FDA-registered devices, all from a single HIPAA-compliant interface. It's great to have you both here.
Thank you so much, Tyler. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, why don't we get started with the founding story? We can kind of go one by one, share like how the idea came for Nilux and how you two met and how you got involved and what you were doing before.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tyler. So I'll just kind of start out with what Nyelux is. So Nyelux is a dual-sided clinical intelligence platform, which gives clinicians instant access to verified medical product knowledge at the point of care. So what this does for clinicians using medical devices, pharmaceutical biotech companies in a clinical setting, they have access to a broad range of how to use products, troubleshooting instantly. And what this does for the companies that are selling and representing these companies, it allows their products to be used in a more effective way, bettering patient care and increasing adoption across different care settings. So that's what the product is. I've been in the medical device industry for over a decade in different roles for, ranging from surgical robotics to endovascular to AI software and home health companies. And over that decade, I saw the same problem over and over and over. And these clinicians really rely on their, medical vendor product support when they're using these products. But it's just physically impossible to be in every care setting all the time. Some reps have, large geographies spanning multiple states, hundreds of hospitals, servicing thousands of customers and clinicians. So what happens when that support isn't available? Where they turn to? There's no solution for that right now. And product data and usage and guidelines are scattered across PDFs and just very antiquated approach to understanding how to really use these products. So saw it in multiple care settings. And what happens when these physicians don't have access to this product data or this information and they use it incorrectly, the patients suffer, right? And what happens to the medical device and product side, if your product is used incorrectly one time, you may have one shot and it's lost. So I started seeing this across multiple different companies, and no matter the size or no matter the care setting. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way to allow our customers to have better access to information at the point of care. And as you see the evolution of companies like Open Evidence and Doximity, physicians and clinicians, they want access to information immediately and they want it to be autonomous. So, and that just doesn't exist right now. So had this idea when I wasn't able to support a very emergent high risk procedure in a rural county 5 hours away. And we had constant turnover of clinicians. In California, it's about 30 to 60% of clinician turnover. So it's constantly new people coming into these healthcare settings. It's not linear. You've got travel nurses, travel physicians, sometimes engaging with these products for the very first time. So, and during that case, that's exactly what happened. And they were reading PDFs and things that I sent over via email to figure out how to use these products and troubleshoot. So I was like, there's got to be a better way. So I created Nyelux to solve this problem, this clinical intelligence platform that's dual-sided, where physicians can access this information on their own, and while also helping vendors scale their product and getting data insights into how their products are being used and being discussed, but when they're not present. So in doing so, I tried to go reach out to some product engineers that were freelancers to build this, and immediately found out that's not the right way to do it. It's way more complex than that. I would have been drowning in bills and all that. So I went on YC Combinator, the matchmaking site, and went through about 3 to 4 different I'm sorry, different kind of candidates who were trying to build something in the space. And I came upon Neha, and she stuck out to me as this brilliant person and really understood. She did her MBA at Johns Hopkins, and I'll let her get into her introduction as well. And she identified these pain points in person, and she really understood the problem that we were solving. And with her background and computer science and her history and working with startups and building her own companies, I'm like, this she's perfect. So we're about a year and a half in. We've launched our beta platform.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's very exciting to go from this conception to actual platform that's providing value. So we've started to onboard our first customers with our version 1 launch in April. So really exciting to be in the space, solving a true problem in the healthcare industry for two different sides, which is really challenging. Kind of like the chicken and the egg scenario. Like, what sort of value can you provide this side to make the other side engage, and vice versa? So
definitely got some questions to dig into there. Maybe Neha, I'll let you give your background and intro, and then I've got already a list of like 5 things I want to ask.
Sure. Hey, so I'm Neha. Have about a decade experience in the tech industry, and I have always been entrepreneur. So even during my bachelor's, that was during the blogging era. So we started off with digital marketing. I had a startup with like supporting clients across globe in digital marketing, Salesforce marketing, and then I went on to build my own products within the healthcare space. I worked for this consulting firm and consulted for some major insurance and healthcare clients across the US. And it was during the pandemic that I knew there was like huge pain points and huge major gaps in the healthcare industries, not just in the US but throughout the globe. So that's when I decided I had to go and get an MBA to understand the real, the real healthcare settings and how do they work. So no better place than Hopkins. So I got into Hopkins. I was there like for my 2 years. I was hyper concentrated on finding these problems. I went and kind of consulted for Johns Hopkins Medicine, and that's where I noticed, I was trying to reduce the turnaround times between procedures, and one of the major pain points was how you prep these devices within like this certain period of amount of time, and each minute was costing like thousands of dollars. So that's when I knew this was a huge problem. Like, what if a new nurse comes in or a new resident comes in and they have no clue on how to use the device? There's a lot of time being wasted. And post Hopkins, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I met Ryan, and I knew instantly that this product might be a hit. Because
Amazing.
because it solves a real problem which I experienced myself. So we started off last year. We built our MVP. We tested it with I think at least 20 to 30 customers.
Wow.
And they did validate again and again. All the 30 of them validated that, yes, you're going in the right direction. So based on the feedback we received, we went into beta. And the beta was very different than what we envisioned in the MVP in terms of the product itself. And the AI space was growing. ChatGPT has entered into the healthcare space.
Yeah.
Anthropic has entered. It's not for us. Like, we have realized over the period of last year, it's not about innovation. And I think it's somewhere between. It's called. I think we are sticking to the vision of being disciplined in solving this. This is like the hardest problem that I've ever solved. So
Yeah.
it's more of discipline more than innovation for us at this moment.
I love that.
And
Yeah. And if I could ask just a couple follow-ups there. First of all, something that stands out to me is just like, it's so important to have a strong founding team. Like, a startup is just the early team, right? And it seems like both of you have background, Johns Hopkins, Ryan, you're like 10 plus years in this, medical industry where you've experienced these problems, plus the technical background. I think you kind of need that mix to be successful today. And I really agree with what you're saying, Neha, about it's not about like innovation. You don't need to go create like a new LLM specifically for this. It's actually just like any old school programming or technology challenge where it's like all of the things around the core technology, like integrating to the providers, making sure your data set, I assume these are the challenges you guys, face. Make sure you have that raw data. That was something that stood out to me when I was, checking out your website ahead of time, is like having millions of, FDA registered devices. I'm sure getting that data was an important part of the process. And just again, a shout out to your beta program. I love to see that you actually have on your website, and we'll show it later, but the ability to try out the product. There's so many people saying they're building something with AI, and it's just a wait list. And so, actually getting to try it out, see that you've built something here and that you have these, deep backgrounds. It makes me really bullish on what you guys are doing. One last sort of personal anecdote that I think gets me again excited about what you're building. I spent my undergrad studying physics and working in a chem lab, and we had these multi-million dollar like pieces of equipment, kind of similar thing, I think. And we would luckily, like, it was our whole job to figure out how to like use them, and we'd work weekends and et cetera. We don't have like a patient there in front of us that we're trying to provide care to. And even then it was onerous to like figure this out. We'd have to contact the manufacturer. Luckily, a couple of our tools were actually like built by companies locally, so we were able to go to their location and ask them questions. But this just feels like a serious pain, and something that like there's no value in having these care givers like spending time to learn about these these tools. They really just need to be using them. So sounds like a strong pain and a good problem to solve. I wanted to ask a couple things there. Ryan, I think it makes a lot of sense what you said about like how the patient is affected if it's taking longer, or if the person doesn't know how to use the equipment. That's probably pretty self-explanatory to most of the audience. What does it also do for the vendor of the medical device? Let's say that like a hospital, or I'm not sure exactly what who are the purchasers of these products, but like they have this equipment there, they don't know how to use it, they're trying to reach out and they're not getting like support. What happens next, because this rep is stretched over like a huge geography?
Yeah, I'll point out too, there's a study by the WHO in 2020 that 70% of medical device issues are preventable with better training. So if we're able to solve that problem, and 30% of adverse events, which is basically a negative patient outcome from a product, is considered an adverse event that's reported by the hospital, are related to user error. So how do we solve it? That's a problem that we're really solving. So and a lot of feedback that we've heard from different customers is, some of these startup medical device companies, they might have, 2 to 4 or 5 reps for the entire country. Some maybe have 1, right?
Wow.
So a lot of the feedback that we've also heard is sometimes we don't even know who our rep is and who to reach out to. So to your point, Tyler, when you were talking about the technology that you used in your experience, reaching out to the manufacturer, that's kind of how it is, sending emails and requests, which could take days, which could take hours, which people don't have that kind of time in a clinical setting. So, and what's interesting to me, when hospitals adopt technology, they go through a value analysis process where they evaluate the technology, they get the 510Ks, they get all the FDA approval stuff, but they don't require the manufacturer to submit anything on how to use the product, troubleshoot the product, or anything. So if something does go south, they're really kind of stuck with figuring out what to do, which could lead to, again, these adverse events or a frustration of products where they may never use that product again. And that significantly affects the adoption in the longevity of some of these smaller companies that are just getting started, or even larger companies that don't have that physical presence because their volume of procedures is so high. It could really affect the long-term sustainability.
So it sounds like if the hospital isn't getting utilization out of the product because they don't know how to use it, they might not purchase another in the future. They might not recommend it to their colleagues. And so it's one of those problems that it's easy to miss that's happening as a vendor, I would imagine, because you already sold the product. But then 2 years later, a year later, when you realize that your growth is slowed or you're not getting as much word of mouth, it's probably because people weren't actually able to utilize the product that they were so excited about when they first purchased it. Does that sound right?
Absolutely. And when you've got 30 to 60% turnover, that means you have new bodies in every month, right? Every week you've got new personnel, new clinicians, from nurses to scrub techs to the actual physicians doing these procedures. And when there's a disconnect on how to use something, the the patience is very short, right? If you're using technology for the first time and just outside of a clinical setting and it's not working or you can't get support, what's the likelihood that you're going to use that again when you have support or something else from a different product or a different company? So it's similar to that.
And with these types of products, are there often, other ways that the vendors make money, like over time servicing or, refills of certain components? Is that important too? That like if the customer's not utilizing it, they're going to miss out on that, those kind of revenue expansion opportunities.
Absolutely. So a lot of the streams of revenue for these med tech, biotech companies is the repeated use of the products, right? In a clinical setting, whether that's, bone screws, whether that's surgical robotics doing some procedure or wound dress, it goes beyond. So whenever they use them, they just continuously reorder. However, if there's issues or there's not really an understanding of how these products are being used or it's sitting on the shelf, they will not get reordered and they will not get renewed. In medical device software, they're on SaaS subscriptions. So this is another problem that we've seen. And a lot of these companies just deploy these softwares in these hospitals and expect everybody to know how to use it. And if it's not getting, used effectively, it might be the best product in the world. But if people don't know how to use it and they don't consistently use it, then after that termination from that year, SaaS subscription, they won't renew. So,
yeah, and like even in the, we build dev tools. So our customers are like engineers building AI systems. They're the most tech savvy people. And even sometimes they don't know how to use software. So it's kind of crazy to, you need to improve your onboarding or you need to train them on the software. And so it's kind of crazy that you'd expect these busy hospital workers to, learn something all on their own. And they're probably not using that exact product every day. It's like, right. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. And so obvious, again, I want to call out that like it's obvious and to us as like patients ourselves of hospitals, like what the problems are if our caregivers don't know how to use these medical devices. But it's really helpful to hear like what it also does to impact the vendor, because maybe it's important that they realize like how much they could be missing out on if they're not leveraging a product like Nyelux.
And then one thing to add too, so like when if hospital or if vendors can actually understand like how their products are being engaged, right, when they're not physically present, that also allows them to, number one, generate some organic leads on who's viewing your products and what side of behavioral insights are they discussing when you're not there. So those companies can then kind of tailor their approach from a sales, marketing, and education side to better that sort of the gap that they may not even know exists. And how would they know, right? So
yeah. Well, I think it's pretty clear to me that like there's a pain, there's a problem here in the market. Sounds like you guys have the right idea for a solution. Now let's talk about like the technical aspects. Ryan, you mentioned that you tried out, maybe a couple like outsourced contractors first to build this. And Neha, you mentioned this is one of the most complicated projects you've worked on. What is like, before you set out to build, the product, what was the biggest thing where you're like, we need to figure out if AI can do this or how we're going to build this component? Was it like retrieving the information? Was it just storing all the data and handling it? What would you say is the biggest challenge?
I'll start with that, Neha, and then I'll go to you. So the biggest problem too with these medical device companies is a lot, I'd say over 50% of the product information and data that they have are proprietary. So they're not public to the public domain. You can't ChatGPT these questions. You can't Google. Some of them you can, but it gives you very surface level questions. So that's a big problem that we're solving as well. And what we're doing from a public standpoint where you can go on and test the product is Neha is housed. We source specific data from the FDA, from verified sources. And what Neha built is verifying all these different data points that we retrieve from. And then she built the Nyelux agent to go in and figure out which source to pull from and how to organize those into, comprehensible answers based off of the question. So I can let Neha take it from here.
Sure. So from the product standpoint, it was always the data. It's always the data, like how you ETL it, like extract it, transform it, load it, and synthesize it. And when it comes to medical data, it's not that easy. You got to understand that each medical, there are like 100 different specialities, and within the 100 different specialities you have like thousands of devices, and each device is it's different in its own way. For example, like measurements are a big part of medical devices. So if you have like french sizes or sheet sizes, so your AI needs to be trained to answer those measurement questions. That was the biggest problem that we still face. And you have ranges, so you got to be very precise in telling like what range a certain, or what length, range is this length that goes into this device. So it's more about like a lot of maths, a lot of math. So you got to think in not just one vertical, like you have to think through different horizontals, verticals, and all the dimensions when you're trying to train your AI to answer these questions. So it's always been the data, and how much you study the data, so you know that you're
Yeah,
getting the right or the wrong answers. So that's been the biggest challenge for us, in building out Nilux.
very interesting.
Hmm.
At a high level, I definitely resonate with it's always the data. At a high level, what is the architecture? You mentioned like training the AI. What does that entail? Do you have multiple agent system? Do you need RAG? Yeah, like how do you have the agent interact with the data?
So it's definitely agentic AI, and we use AI more of like an interface layer. So it's like it's conversational. It holds context, but it's more of trying to get into the verified workflows. So it's not going to be like other chatbot
Okay.
experience. It's more of getting into the verified workflows. And to speak about the high level architecture, it's pretty much the same. We do have RAGs, we do have vector DBs, and like we try to go in house with our LLMs, but right now we are sitting on top of OpenAI, just so because we are in the beta, and on the top, yeah, Python fast API. So it's pretty basic,
Nice. That's
but the
similar to
comp,
our setup.
yeah. So
Cool. And when it comes to, you mentioned that there's like these workflows. How are those workflows defined and how are they triggered? Is that like in prompt you explain there's three workflows? Do you have like tool calls that, kick off a workflow? Yeah, can you tell
mhm.
us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so we are designed. Uh, we want to be very cautious. We are designed not to be, not to try to please the user. So our AI recognizes when it doesn't know an information, that it shouldn't hallucinate, it shouldn't, make stuff up. So it is pretty blunt. If you ask a question today on Nilux, it says I don't know. It says I don't know.
That's
And
good.
if
Yeah.
it finds verified information, it says I have verified this, and here is the sources that you can go to. And we have like the verification process is also rigorous, like how we have designed it, we have tiered it. So it can tell you like how well verified it is. So if it's coming from the direct sources, or it's from some journals. So these days, with advent of ChatGPT and all of it, even research is being like, there's a lot of ambiguity with research too. So our AI is designed to tell you like, how confident is it with the answer. And if it has less confidence and it's getting from like the general web or the general journals, it says, hey, I'm very low, have very low confidence in this answer. So it's more of like, it's verifying itself
Mm.
and giving out the right answers more than hallucinating.
Yeah, I love that focus on, it's okay to mention that you don't have access to certain data,
Hmm.
because especially in this space, it's important that you don't give any, inaccurate answers. And maybe that's a way to prompt these vendors to share more information about how their tool works, because you can tell them, hey, all these people are asking about your product. We don't have information for it, so we can't answer them.
Yeah.
When it comes to this verified data set, it sounds like maybe like a traditional big data, or, you mentioned ETL, like it's more of those challenges. So in my head, tell me if I'm understanding right, there's kind of two components. There's the agentic interface, and then under the hood, there's like this large, and really well curated data set where you've
Hmm.
tiered it.
Mhm.
How do you do that tiering? Is that like you guys manually reviewing it? Do you have agents that go and read through the research paper and rate it on a certain scale and then give it a tier? How have you approached kind of
Yeah.
curating that data set?
Yeah, you got it right. We have like agents going in and getting us the confidence index, and we have like multiple agents, multiple logics within it, and that logics actually came in with trial and error. So we have the vendors using it and telling us, hey, this is not right.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we it learns. We are like building this RLM, the recursive language model within the agents, so it learns from its mistakes, and it constantly changes its scores. That's how we are doing it.
I love that. It's great that you mentioned RLM. Actually, one of our devs just shared a paper this morning in one of our Slack channels, and
Yeah.
I haven't read it yet, but it was mentioning RLMs. I want to ask, I assume maybe this is you, Ryan, but like that process of, so I love that you guys are actually like grounding the AI in verified data, and it sounds like part of your process is to have the vendors, they probably share their data about their tools with you, and then they go in and try it out. Tell me more about that process for onboarding like new devices or new vendors and how that might improve like the confidence in the actual answers from the AI.
Right. So it's a good question. So Neha set it up where when we onboard our customers from the vendor side, all the FDA, all their products are automatically integrated based off of their company. So Neha has figured out a way to make it very seamless for them. And what's available to the public already, we allow our clinicians, customers to use Nyelux for free right now. So what they're able to search is from the publicly available data that we source in our current database. But then the vendors have, like I mentioned, that proprietary data, that information, those key information, video, everything that's very important in understanding how products work. They have the autonomy to upload their own information into our database, and then control and have full autonomy on who that's shareable with. So whether that's an individual, whether that's a specific physician, whether it's a hospital group, or based off of different companies, or mass invites, or just specific to certain people. And then on the other side, when the clinicians search, if they've got access to restricted access to that company, they're able to get answers that aren't available to someone else trying to come in. And what that does is it keeps all the information safe and not available to the public. So I hope
that's great.
Question, Tyler. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I could keep going for hours. This is a super fascinating discussion, but I want to ask maybe one more question before we start to wrap up, which is around evaluation, monitoring. A lot of companies are now getting to the stage where you guys are, where they actually have a product in front of users. The past 2 years has been a lot of like making toy ideas with LLMs. And so now we're starting to realize, okay, how do we keep track that the AI is accurate? How do we monitor how users are using it in production? I think you already alluded to this a bit, Neha, about, hey, you actually have, for evaluation, you have like the experts, the vendors themselves try out the product and give you feedback, and then you store that. But I wanted to, pass it back to you to just give us a little bit of an idea of like, what tools do you use, or what's your approach to, evaluating accuracy, and to just keeping track of like, hey, do people use it to ask about setup of the system, or do they use it to ask about, a specific bug they're getting? Like, how do you keep track of those kind of things?
We have inbuilt analytics set up for it. So we kind of we grasp that knowledge from the question they're asking based off on the device and the manufacturer. So we tag the device and the manufacturer with the certain type of questions they're asking. So we have inbuilt analytics. It comes in house. And yeah, that's how you identify the heat maps, the product gaps, because it's very simple. We try to keep it as simple as possible. Our AI kind of recognizes the device it's asking about, the manufacturer is asking about, and provide that analytics to us.
That's great.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, congrats again on launching the beta, on, really having figured out a very specific pain, obviously from your guys' experience. I want to put your website up on the screen here. It's Nyelux, or beta.nyelux.com. I'll kind of scroll through as you kind of give us a rundown, Ryan. Who should check it out? How do they get involved? How do they follow along?
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. So, this is meant for any sort of clinician using any sort of product at the point of care. So nurses, scrub techs, home health nurses, clinicians, anybody in that sort can go on and utilize Nyelux for free and get instant answers on any products that are available. And then from the medical vendor side, med tech companies, biopharma, biotech, med device, healthcare software companies, please reach out to us. We're still in the beta phase. So looking forward to onboard some of these early partners, get feedback and build this together with people who are directly involved with it. So.
Amazing. Thanks for that. And again, thanks both for taking the time to be on the show. It's always great when we get, two co-founders on, not just one. And congrats again on launching beta, and looking forward to following along. If you're out there building something, go ahead and ship it. See you guys next time.
Thanks, Tyler.
Thank you.